Hello everyone, and welcome back to some Factorio Space Age. I'm Exterminator, and thank you for joining me today. And, it has been a while since I've done a video, but I figured it was maybe appropriate to do another video on space platforms more in depth than I have already. I have done a video previously, generally on launching your first space platform, but it's been brought to my attention that there's still some stuff that's maybe unclear, and I want to just do a complete, comprehensive, full overview of everything you should consider, all the steps required, all the materials required, and everything else, and all the nuances from like when you would initially want to begin thinking about a platform all the way until actually getting one launched and starting to build on it. Because there's a lot of things to consider, and I'm going to be honest here. The Space Age expansion does so many things really well, and the devs completely knocked it out of the park. However, one thing I think it does not do well at all is provide clear instructions and indications on some of the new aspects of the game, such as launching your first space platform. I've had so many questions and video comments from people about it. I've had people like on Discord who have played the game for hundreds or thousands of hours, like wondering about it and why some stuff doesn't work. And to be completely honest, when we were at the LAN beta testing back in September, like most of the team I was on of 10 people, like all of which had several thousand hours each in the game, like most of us were also stuck on how to do this, and they did improve it slightly, but I think it's still kind of unclear. So why don't we hop in and start going over this? And we are already in a established base here, and I have launched some platforms already, but that should not affect any of this tutorial because it's going to basically be the same. What I show you here is going to be basically the same as if you do it for the first time. So let's start with, like, at what point will you be considering maybe launching a platform? Well, technically, you can actually do this earlier than you might think. You can actually build a silo and launch a platform after unlocking, or after basically getting blue science. So if we search here now, I've already unlocked it, but again, I will show you exactly how you would get this. So as you can see, if we look up in our tree here, you can get a rocket silo with red, green, and blue science. And then with that, once you unlock a rocket silo, you then get access to, of course, the silo and the rocket parts, but also things related to building a platform. So you get your cargo landing pad, and this is what's going to basically accept materials on a planet from a space platform. And then you get your space platform starter pack, which is very important. This is what you're actually going to use to set up a platform to begin with. And then you get this space platform foundation, which is used to expand and build upon an already existing platform that you've created with this starter pack here, right? So once you do this, the next step is then going to be, this is one of those trigger researches. I actually did a YouTube short video on these trigger researches if you're not familiar with them. But basically, instead of unlocking these things with science packs, you unlock them by building things or completing actions. And in this case, Space Platform is going to be, this research is going to be unlocked by crafting, create space platform by sending the starter pack to space, which you recall we unlocked with this research. So it's kind of a sequential order of events and actions you take to unlock these next couple things. And this gives you access to a bunch of stuff that may seem overwhelming, but basically you can think of these asteroid collectors as miners for space. This is how you collect materials in space. And then these crushers you can consider like furnaces or assembling machines for space. Now you can still build, to clarify, you can still build furnaces or assemblers on the space platform as well, but in terms of the actual space related resources, this is kind of your miner, and then this is like your processor that takes these raw materials collected and then does something with them. And that's what these three recipes are here. This is basically, you collect these asteroid chunks from asteroids floating by in space. You collect these with the asteroid collector, and then you take these chunks and you stick them into a crusher, which then gives you, and this is what this recipe is in the crusher. You can see they're made in crusher, and it produces iron, in this case, carbon, and ice, and then a 20% chance basically to get back that input chunk material. And you get your cargo bay, and this is basically a way to expand the inventory size and storage amount in your space platform. And then lastly, you get space science, because space science is now made on a space platform. So to unlock this, it's another trigger research where you basically just have to build one of those collectors on a space platform, and that will unlock this research and give you the ability to craft space science, which again is on a platform. You don't get it from launching rockets anymore. You have to build it on the platform. And to clarify, this is if you have Space Age, enabled, or if you've bought it. Even if you bought it, you can still disable it. But the point is, if you're playing without the Space Age expansion, then this is not gonna, none of this is gonna be here, right? So if you're still playing like without the expansion, you would still unlock space science how you previously would, obviously, because you don't have platforms. So all this is if you're assuming you're using the expansion, right? So let's assume, I mean, we have unlocked all those in this playthrough. Let's assume that you have at least unlocked the rocket silo and gained access to these things. So your next step is going to be creating a space platform starter pack. And if you're ever confused about like what something does, or maybe how you unlock it, I highly recommend taking advantage of the Factoriopedia in-game. You can access it up here, or you can just alt left click on anything. It can be like within the game world itself, or in your crafting menu, or anything like that. If you just alt click something, it will bring up the Factoriopedia page on it and give you a ton of information. So it will tell you how you unlock it. It will tell you basically what it gives you, like what item it gives you, how it's made, the ingredients, some more information about it. And this is the case for everything. You can see all these menus here. This is every single item in the game. So I definitely, and you can search within, well, this is crafting, but you can search within the Pedia as well. And I definitely recommend using this. It has helped me. It helped me a ton initially. Like when I first played at the LAN party, I used this constantly trying to figure out what all this new stuff was, and it was really helpful. So I do recommend that, but your next step is going to be building the Space Platform Starter Pack. And this may seem somewhat cheap, but it's actually fairly expensive. It takes 20 steel by itself, steel on its own, and then processing units. However, you then need 60 Space Platform Foundation, which again you will have unlocked from that silo research. And this alone is 20 steel and 20 copper per one of these. And it's quite a long craft time too. It's a 10-second craft time. So, 60 of these, I mean, you can see the total raw materials down there. It's over 1,000 steel, 600 copper, and 20 processing units just for this starter pack. And you basically are almost guaranteed to need more platform space than what this starter pack gives you, because it gives you a tiny little platform and then 10 space platform foundations like along with it to expand. You can see it says down there, and that's really small. You're definitely going to need more than that if you want to like actually have room to build something useful. So you're going to need to make more of this. I highly recommend setting this up like ASAP once you unlock it. As soon as you unlock a silo, I would go set up assemblers for this and start crafting it. And I have done that down here, but it's definitely worth keeping in mind the steel requirement for this. I would almost recommend building like an entire steel smelter just for this, because steel is something that is a pretty, I would say, I don't want to say hard to come by, but it's a resource that a lot of things need, and it's a resource that's kind of hard to get in quantity just due to the craft time and iron required to make it. I think most people who have played the game definitely have realized that to get any decent amount of steel, you need a large amount of smelting for it. And this takes a lot of steel. You can see I have 4 assemblers doing this, and I even still have times where I run out of it. So I would definitely keep that in mind. Now that you've crafted this, right, so I mean, I'm in cheat mode, so that's why I can make infinite of these, but you would craft this, assuming you have these materials, and then you need to actually send this to space. So the next step is going to be obviously placing your silo and building a rocket. Now, something else that has changed is the rocket now requires slightly different materials than it did prior to the expansion and different quantities. So it now requires processing units, loading structure, and rocket fuel. These two are the same as they used to be, but the rocket control unit has been completely taken out of the game, and instead of that, it now takes the processing units to make a rocket. And it's significantly cheaper. It still takes 100 rocket parts, but each one of these is only, I think it takes 100 rocket parts, but each one of these is only one processing unit, one loaded sea structure, and one rocket fuel. And oh, it only takes 50. I'm sorry, they cut that in half. I'm still stuck in the prior to the expansion. But it is 50, so really you only require 50 processing units, 50 LDS, and 50 rocket fuel per rocket, which is really cheap. You throw in productivity with that, and you have yourself some pretty cheap rockets, right? So this then brings me to my next point, is due to the fact they're so cheap, but even more importantly, due to how many rockets you're going to have to launch, I highly recommend having more than one rocket silo. I have two. I actually wish I had more than two. I would say my sweet spot for like a base this size and what I want to do with it would probably be 4. And that seems like a lot. I mean, rocket silos are still expensive to build. Those were not made cheaper, but the rockets themselves are significantly cheaper. And the reason that you would want more than one of these is because if you're stuck on one, it is going to take you quite a long time to get all the materials up to space that you need to. And we're going to touch on that in a minute as to why that is, but let's still kind of go in order of what you would be doing here. So let's say you built a rocket silo and you've built your Space Platform starter pack. You now need to obviously build the rocket, and once you've done that, you can go into your silo and you have a few options. This is irrelevant for this particular application, and then you have the option to build a new space platform or travel to space. Well, without a platform, you have nowhere to travel to, so you won't be able to do this. I had this option because I have platforms already, but you would click this option of build new space platform. And then it brings you into this menu, this rocket silo menu, and it popped up this little box over here. And this is where you're going to create your new platform, basically. So you name it. We'll just name it Exterm Test. And then the planet it's on. Obviously, it will only be novice when you're first starting. And then starter pack, well, that's what you need. So just leave this as is, right? So you can do this, and you can see space platform hasn't been built yet. A rocket silo must deliver a space platform starter pack first. So that's because I did not put one in here. You could put one in here first, and it would make things maybe a little easier. But even if you didn't, there's no worries there. You can go ahead and just stick it in here. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to put this in here, and it won't let me. Now, if you encounter this, it is because of this option down here, and this is not very intuitive. So the way this option works is automatic requests from space platform. So this is basically like a logistic request or logistic call from space platforms to your silos to request whatever the platform needs, either based on requests you set or based on like build requests that it's missing items for. And when this is on, it will not let you manually put items in the silo. So if you ever encounter this, it is because this option is on and you need to turn this off, right? And you can see you now lose this option, but as soon as I put this in here, then it says rocket is not ready, but that's because I had already done this. So it's just going to, it knows it needs to send this up, right? Because I'd already had gone through the process of starting a new platform. And it launches that. And if I had not already gone through this process, you would have just put the thing in and clicked the button and you would be good to go. And soon we should get this pop-up. You can see right here. The name of your platform created in orbit above novice, and when you mouse over this, it shows you the platform, and then this shows you novice. But you can click on this, and it will bring you to the platform. And we are now in space, and you can see it's selected on this platform. And as you can see, there's no room to build anything here. And all you get is your 10 space platform foundation, which is nowhere near enough. You're going to need a lot more than this. Now, alternatively, another way to access this is through the remote view, which is what we were just in. But let's say you forgot to click this, or you missed it or something, or you want to access it afterwards. If you just hit M for map, or remote view, I guess now is what replaced map, but it's still hotkey M. This brings you to your surfaces, your planets, and your platforms. You can now access all of this here. You can add a new space platform through this menu as well, which is what we just did. So you can do it here or in the silo. But you can then click on the platform you want, and it will bring you back to this view. Now, this is where things can get potentially even more confusing to some people, and it was very confusing to me as well. Once you've created your platform, it kind of, there's some new options here. It's not very intuitive, in my opinion, on what you need to do next. So let's take inventory of what's available to us. So auto request missing construction materials. So this is what I was referring to a minute ago, where if you have this checked on and you go to build on this platform, anything that is not already in the platform inventory will be put here as a request for construction. Those requests are then sent down to your silos, and that is what would be showing up here with this option turned on. And I will show you that in action in just a moment. Okay, so that's what's going to happen there. And then this is where you would actually manually set requests for things if you want to do that. And this would work just like normal like requests for your person or anything else. But this is the automatic one. You can turn this on or off. I like leaving it on most of the time, just so I'm not having to manually go in and select every single thing I need. This is convenient. Now over here, we have a train stop looking section, and this is basically how you would have your platforms move. Now, for your first one, which is going to be used to generate space science, because you can't really go anywhere without having space science and researching some things with it. So your first one is going to be for space science, and this will be completely irrelevant to you because you don't need to move your platform. It will just orbit over Novice forever and does not need engines, does not need movement. But once you get to the point of needing one that actually goes somewhere, this works just like a train stop, except it goes to planets and not train stop. So it says add station. So these are planets once you've unlocked the planets. So like in this example, I've only unlocked Fulgora, so that's where I could tell it to go if I wanted to. Now there's no engine, so it's never going to go. But if I add this, it's, you know, basically very much like a train stop. You can set conditions, unload, you can add another station, you can add interrupts, just like you can add interrupts to trains. So if you're familiar and know how to use trains, this should be pretty straightforward to you. You can turn it to automatic, or you can have it pause thrust if you don't want it to automatically go. It is on pause thrust by default. So if you do have engines and are ready to go somewhere, you can either click this to go, or you can turn it to automatic, but that's why it may not automatically go, because it starts on pause. Now, a few other things to touch on here. You can search, which kind of just searches like in the inventory basically. So this is kind of just like an inventory search as far as I've been able to tell. Over here is a circuit network, so you can read contents, send to platforms, so it sends the contents of the circuit network to the platform so they can be used for weight conditions. So this circuit connection is all basically mostly in regards to weight conditions. You can read the speed, you can read damage taken, and such like this. Now over here is your electric network, and this is something else that may throw people off and not be intuitive. So first off, you know, without power poles, you may be wondering how you view your, you know, energy usage. And that is this button here. And this pulls up an electric network info for your platform. Because you don't need power poles on your platform. That is the other difference. You never need power poles. Basically, it is just powered through the platform. So anything that you place on a platform, as long as it's connected to the main structure, which it kind of has to be. So basically, anytime you place something on the platform, it is automatically powered through the floor. And then power can be generated basically any of the ways it can be generated on planet, except obviously it's going to be a lot harder to generate things like steam power or nuclear power because there's no like there's no lakes, there's no water sources here except through ice, which you would have to process down. We're not going to get into that, but solar is an excellent power option because in space, solar has an even greater effect. I believe it is 3 or 4 times more effective. Solar panel output is 3 or 4 times more in space on a space platform than it is on planet. So you can place solar panels, and you don't really need accumulators because there's not really a nighttime in space, so they're just always on. You could use accumulators, I suppose, if you wanted to for some buffer of maybe laser turrets or something, but generally you wouldn't really need accumulators. So again, do not need power poles. You do need power, but you can use solar panels for that to begin with, and everything is powered just through the platform floor. Now, in terms of actually building, this is the next part that throws some people off. You cannot just go in here and grab items like you can on planet, and you also can't really use your hotbar very well, right? So you go here, you can see, well, there's nothing in here. So you can use it to select stuff, so this can be convenient, but it's not going to match up with what's in the inventory here. However, this can be used for a kind of quick access. But what you can do is if you hit E, you can, while you're in a remote view, which you're going to have to be viewing a platform, you're brought into this menu. And this is basically like the crafting menu, except there's no quantity limits of what you can craft. This is just everything you've unlocked, basically. And this is how you're actually going to be accessing your items. And then it's going to pull from the platform inventory. So if I go in here and select, you can double click, you can checkbox, you get your platform. Now, I find that kind of tedious because you have to go in and double click it, or you have to click a checkbox. So setting up on your hotbar, the thing you're going to need most, I think, is definitely a really good way to do it. And also, I like using the picker or pipette tool with the Q. So if I hit Q over the items in inventory, you can get them out that way. Or if you hit Q over something that's already placed, once you started building, you can do it that way. And that's usually what I find most convenient. So combining the hotbar as well as the picker tool, I find much easier than trying to use this menu. And then it's all going to be ghost built, right? So because you're not actually up here, you're not actually pulling from your own personal inventory. It's going to be ghost built initially. And if the platform has it in its inventory, it is going to build it. So if we place some of this platform down, you can see it's beginning to build, which looks really awesome, by the way. But you'll notice it only had 10 and it used all 10. So everything it couldn't build is just remaining ghosted. And this is going to be the case for any type of item like belts. It's going to ghost it down, and we're going to get it's going to start requesting these things from the silos. You can see here everything it is requesting. Right, so as you start building, if it does not have it, it will place these requests in here with if you have this check mark on, and anything in yellow is going to be basically in the process of being fulfilled, or it can be fulfilled, and then it's going to send it up and drop it in here like this. And you can see it's starting to complete these. Anything in red, it is not able to fulfill currently, and you would have to obviously go investigate why that is. The next caveat here is something that I think also throws people and also kind of annoys me. This is one of my biggest annoyances, is that this always requests in full stacks, or always sends full stacks, I should say. You can see here, it's only requesting the amount that we actually required to build, so it's only requesting the 2 here and the 1 here. However, the way the game works with this is that when you automatically request and send things up in a silo, it sends them in full stacks always. So even though I only needed 1 splitter, it is going to send me an entire stack of 50 splitters, because when you're using the automatic option, it does not ever allow you to do piecemeal, right? Or on demand type of thing. It just always sends a full stack of whatever you request regardless of if it's 1, 2, 8, whatever. And you can see here. Now you can you can avoid this by turning this off and then manually putting the items in the silos, which is kind of tedious, but I do this sometimes because for things that you're really never going to need a full stack of, like, I don't know, like collectors or something on your first platform, you're never going to need an entire stack of collectors. I shouldn't say never, you might. But there's a few items where it's like you just are not going to need a full stack of these on your platform, and it's wasteful to send them up. So in that case, what I would do is I would uncheck this, and then I would go back to novice, and I would go into one of my silos, like this one, and I would turn this off. And then once you actually get out of your remote view here, then you can come in here and you can place in what you actually need and manually send the rocket, right? So you can actually then place in like the amount that you need here, like piecemeal. And that's how you can do that. You then have to, though, manually send it. So then you would click deliver cargo, you would select the platform you want it to go to, and it would send this rocket up. But without that, it's going to send it in full stacks every time. Which brings us to basically one of the last parts here, and that is how sending items in rocket silos actually work, or in rockets work. And this is a whole new mechanic that really is only used for sending items to space, and also I think kind of for space platform travel, but mostly for sending items into space, and that is item weights. So you can see down here, as I was putting items in here, the rocket capacity usage is going up, and this is based on weight. So each rocket can carry 1 ton worth of items, and every item in the game has a weight. And if you mouse over the item, it tells you how many can fit in a rocket silo. Now, it doesn't tell you the weight itself, which I find a little bit weird, because then you have to manually like calculate in your head or whatever, like how many, like take this and divide it to get the actual weight of the item. But like if I put 1 in here, you can see it's 10 kilograms, but it didn't tell me that. It just said that it can fit 100. And again, if you had mathed that out, you would get the same result. But each item has a weight, and it does tell you how many fit in a rocket silo. And you can see as we start mousing over these why you're going to need so many rockets, right? It took an entire rocket just to send up the splitters that I needed, or it took an entire rocket just to send up the underground belts I needed. And this is where things start getting kind of wasteful in some cases, because we spent a rocket to send a full stack of splitters. I'm not going to need ever on this platform a full stack of splitters, whereas I could have combined everything in one rocket and send up everything I actually needed, rather than sending 1 rocket for splitters, 1 for underground belts, another 1 for belts, etc., etc. Okay, and this also is the case very much for the actual platform foundation itself. So you can only fit 50 of these in a rocket to go up it, and that's half a stack, you can see there. And you can see like how little like it actually gets us, right? So, you know, if I go to do this, you know, how much platform does 50 actually do? And it's basically this. So like basically 2 rows like this much here is 50 platform. So, you know, if you, I mean, you need, you know, some room to harvest materials and do production. You know, let's say you need 250 platform. I mean, that's 5 rockets worth right there that you need to send up, not counting all of the other things you need. So this is why I would recommend having more than 1 silo, because otherwise you're just going to be waiting to send rockets 1 at a time for them to build, for them to go through the animation and send up here, etc., etc. It helps a lot when you have multiple, because it will send up multiple at a time based on the requests, and it will dynamically request. So it is smart enough at least to know, like, if you have multiple silos, not to request splitters in both of them or something. It will do it dynamically and appropriately, but that is just something worth keeping in mind. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on, I'm not going to show you necessarily how to make space science, because I did do a video on that, and you can check that out. I will try to link it in the description or in the comments. But once you've built your platform, you then need to use your harvester, your asteroid collectors, to collect asteroids. And you can see all these asteroids floating by here, or pieces of them. So you can take these, and you can see they have kind of a area here, much like a miner would, although larger. And it's going to be red. You have to place it, obviously, on a platform, and you have to place it kind of recessed in back here. So if you try to place it out here, it's not going to let you. You need to recess it in like this. And if you have it on a corner, it's going to kind of dynamically adjust the grab area based on how the platform is shaped around it. So you can see it's not going to work here because we're too far in. It won't work here because it's too far out. So just kind of move it around till you get it green, and then you can place this. And this is going to grab every asteroid that floats into here that is these like small chunks. Right now, if there's bigger chunks that you need to break apart, this is when you would need turrets. However, they kind of do a good job of indicating what's actually like relevant or not here, because you can see all these bigger ones are dark, and even though they're floating by the platform, they're kind of going like past it or underneath it and not actually damaging it. And everything that these can grab that's actually like usable is more of a like a lighter, like brighter color, right? These are kind of darker, shaded out, and then these are actually like on the forefront. So that's kind of a way you can tell. You don't really need turrets on this platform because unless you're moving, like none of these are actually going to bash up your platform on novice. So you can place these and they all start grabbing stuff, and then they have their own little inventory here, which you can then grab out of with inserters, place on belt, just like you would then do things in a normal factory, and you would send these then into crushers. So crushers, much like an assembler, you would set a recipe on based on what you're putting in it. And so let's say we want to crush these metallic asteroids chunks here. You could then take an inserter and do this. Now, it's worth noting that without filters, this is going to grab any of the 3 types of asteroid chunks you can grab, right? Luckily, this has a recipe set, so this is not going to insert any of the wrong type in here, but it will kind of jam up if you don't have a way to output the other 2. So if you want, you could filter these. You can do circuit networks to filter these. I've done videos showing this, and again, I will try to link that. But you can select. So let's say we want this one to only grab metallic chunks, then it's not going to clog up with all the other stuff. And you can go in here and set your filters, right? And then you go through the process, and this is going to then transition just like anything else you've built so far. You know, you find the recipe. Okay, well, this needs ice, iron, carbon. Well, we know how to get iron. We've done that already from the beginning of the game. And then ice. Okay, well, here's ice. And the thing is, in here, it doesn't actually tell you how to, like, make everything. So you could go out of remote view and do that, or you can just alt-click, remember, and go to Factoriopedia. And here we go. Okay, well, this is gathered from, it says here, lithium ice formation, which is for another planet, but if you can find basically in here that you actually can get ice from asteroid chunks. So this is actually slightly wrong, I believe. I mean, it shows this, but it doesn't show the asteroid crushing here. But if we go to this, that shows you can get ice from this, right? Okay, well then we need carbon. So let's say we search for carbon. Okay, come in here, and you can see carbon asteroid chunk, which is what we want, or the carbon directly. And we can see, okay, well, we get this from all of these things, and then you can go into this recipe, carbonic asteroid crushing, and you get the carbon, and then you can just make your way. And at that point, it becomes just like normal factory building, aside from kind of the nuances of building a space where everything's ghosted. You have to wait for the materials to come up here. And the actual last thing I'm going to touch on is, if this was not obvious already, make sure you have everything you need or everything you would want in space. Make sure you have all of that in your logistic network, and also have your silos covered by your logistic network, because when this is turned on, automatically request, this is going to be requesting with robots and with the logistic network. So you obviously need these items in your logistic network. And your silos need to also be within your logistic network. And another interesting thing here is, and this is something that kind of drove me a little crazy, is you also need to make sure at a bare minimum you always have like a full rocket's worth of the items, because an issue I encountered and was confused by for a good while is I had, like, I think it was circuits. I was requesting circuits up to a platform to send to another planet, and if we look at circuits, you can send 200, you can send 2,000 of these up to space. But the issue is I didn't have 2,000 in my network, and it would not just request them like piecemeal. It just didn't request them until I actually had 2,000 in my network. And this was really confusing to me. They may have changed this. I will admit I've not read every single patch note since I encountered that up until now. So this may have been changed. But at the time, this really confused me because I was like, I don't understand. I have 500 circuits in my network. Why is it not requesting any of them? And it's because I didn't have an entire silo, an entire rocket's worth of the item. And this is something that is like not indicated whatsoever anywhere, that I find really frustrating. So, you know, I hope you made it this far in the video to get here and realize this. Just make sure anything you want to send up into space, you A, have in your logistic network, B, your rocket silos in your logistic network, and C, equally as important, is you have an entire rocket capacity worth of each of those items in your logistic network. Otherwise, it's not going to request them and send them up unless that was changed and I'm unaware of it. If so, please let me know. But that is going to do it. I know this has been quite a lengthy video, but I hope this kind of covered everything, answered any potential questions you have, maybe helped you get past anything you were stuck on, or prepare you to not get stuck. And if you have any other questions or thoughts, please leave them down below. And I really appreciate it if you managed to stick it out this far, and for watching in general. And if you did enjoy and found it helpful, a like is greatly appreciated. And if you are new and not already subscribed, feel free to keep up with all future content. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.